All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really wild, really ambitious private sector proposal. It's called the National Unity and Prosperity Act, or NUPA for short. And what it claims to do, well, it claims it can solve some of the biggest problems facing America today.
So let me just start with a question for you. How on earth would you fix a $40 trillion national debt, deal with the very real threat of AI taking millions of jobs, and address deep historical injustices, all at the same time? And here's the kicker, how would you do it at zero cost to taxpayers? It sounds completely impossible, right? But that is the central promise of the framework we're looking at.
To really get how NUPA even tries to answer that massive question, we have to first understand the scale of the problems it's aiming to fix. The interesting thing is, this framework doesn't see them as three separate issues, but as one big interconnected crisis that's coming to a head very, very soon.
The people who designed this plan actually have a name for it, the 2026 trilemma. So you've got three huge things converging. First, the national debt, which is on track to blow past $40 trillion. Second, AI development, which is accelerating so fast it threatens to wipe out huge chunks of the workforce. And third, these fractured sovereignty demands from groups like tribal nations, which are creating some pretty deep cracks in the country.
Now here's the foundational idea behind NUPA. The framework argues that the usual government toolkit, raising taxes, spending more money, creating another government agency, just makes these problems worse. They basically say those tools are broken, and we need a totally new approach, a fundamentally different system.
So, what is this new system? This is where it starts to sound less like politics and more like Silicon Valley. NUPA isn't presented as just another law or some government program. Its creators call it a brand new operating system for the American economy.
The official term is a private architectural operating system. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like software. Its rules aren't based on politics, they're based on private contract law and IP rights. That means once it's up and running, it's designed to operate on its own, without constant political meddling.
This slide really breaks it down. A normal government program is funded by our taxes, run by a bureaucracy, and as we all know, can be changed or even scrapped every time a new party takes power. NUPA is designed to be the opposite. It funds itself through private land leases. It's governed by ironclad contracts, and it's built to be, and this is their term, Washington-proof.
So you might be wondering, what does Congress have to do? Well, according to this plan, almost nothing. All it takes is one single, one-time vote, a vote to authorize the use of specific, underutilized federal lands. After that single action, the system is designed to take over and run itself.
Okay, so if it doesn't use tax money, where does the wealth come from? How does it all work? This brings us to the engine room of the whole system, a distribution model they call the 40-40-20 wealth engine.
It all gets started with something called the bootstrapping protocol. It sounds complicated, but it's a pretty logical four-step process. First, a tribal nation has to voluntarily opt in and identify a piece of federal land next to their own. Then, corporations put down refundable deposits to show they're serious about leasing that land. Here's the key. Those private deposits, not tax dollars, are what launch the whole thing. Finally, Congress gives that one-time authorization, the land moves into a private trust, and the system is officially live.
The whole philosophy behind this economic engine is right here in this quote from the source material. It's all about aligning incentives. The goal is to create a system where doing the right thing for peace and prosperity is also the most profitable thing for everybody involved.
So how does that engine actually split the money? It's simple. For every single dollar of revenue that comes in from these corporate land leases, 40 cents goes straight to the partner tribal nation as a royalty. Another 40 cents goes directly to a group of beneficiaries, specifically verified descendants of historical injustices. And that last 20 cents, it gets automatically plowed right back into the project to build more infrastructure, which creates this self-funding loop.
And what kind of numbers are we talking about here? I mean, what's the potential scale? According to the economic models in the NUPA documents, if this thing was rolled out over 24 million acres, it could generate over $4 trillion in gross revenue. And that's just in the first 10 years.
So, we've seen how the machine is supposed to work, but for a plan this big to have any chance, everyone involved needs a really good reason to get on board. So let's break down who the key players are and what's in it for them.
The documents make this really interesting claim that the system achieves what they call omnipartisan alignment. The idea is brilliant, really. Instead of trying to get everyone to agree through political debate, which never works, you just design a system where the mechanics automatically give each group what they want. It's alignment by design, not by argument. This table just lays it all out perfectly. Tribal nations are the sovereign land stewards. Their incentive? A massive 40% royalty stream, and, crucially, absolute veto power. Corporations? They get predictable super long-term land leases, way below market rates. The beneficiaries? They get direct cash payments from a private source. And the US government? They get a fire hose of new tax revenue from all this new economic activity, which they can then use to pay down that massive national debt.
And remember that whole AI job displacement problem? The plan has an answer for that too, called the AI job firewall. And the logic is actually pretty simple. Corporations get these incredibly cheap 99-year leases, a fantastic deal. The catch? In the contract, they have to agree to prioritize hiring human beings over robots. The deal on the land is so good, it actually makes human labor cheaper than automation for these companies.
Okay, let's zoom out and pull all these pieces together. If this thing were to be fully implemented, what is the ultimate trillion-dollar payoff the framework claims it can deliver?
The claims are honestly staggering. The framework says it can discharge the entire national debt, create that firewall to protect American jobs from AI, restore true economic sovereignty and self-determination to tribal nations, settle those historical claims with private money instead of tax money, and, on top of all that, create a huge, self-sustaining boom in tax revenue.
And to prove this system is robust, the documents point to some heavy-duty AI modeling they apparently conducted. They claim they ran millions of simulations, throwing every crisis imaginable at the framework: market crashes, political chaos, you name it. The result? They got back this, quote, claiming a 99.99999% survival rate, with the AI concluding the system was an omniverse eternal fortress.
And all of this brings us back to that one huge, multi-trillion-dollar question: is it even possible for a private framework governed by contract law to solve the nation's biggest public problems? The theory behind NUPA is a massive bet that by redesigning the incentives, you really can rewrite the future.